Hi there, friend. I'm excited for this one. It's one of our favorites. Today we're going to be cooking some delicious crispy lemon chicken thighs. We'll be pairing it with some amazing oven-roasted broccoli, and of course, the healthiest yet also tasty member of the plate, a strawberry walnut feta salad tossed in a homemade balsamic vinaigrette. Damn, Daniel, doesn't that just sound delicious? Helpful for life.
All right, so let's talk about one of my favorite veggies, broccoli. I mean, it's so cool. It's kind of like a rainforest. Like, look, you got all these nice little trees, and you got all the stems, which are kind of like tree trunks. I mean, one of the cooler vegetables, in my opinion. Plus, who doesn't like blowing trees or whatever it's called when the kids eat broccoli these days? Anyways, one way to cut up broccoli is basically, the main thing you're trying to do is get rid of the very base of the stalks, because that's a little tougher, doesn't have as good texture. So really, the main thing you want to do is you're going to kind of cut that off. And then the other thing you're trying to achieve is you want all of the individual trees, if you will, also called a floret, if you want to use the real word, each of the florets to be separate. Oven's ready to go. So yes, we want to separate the florets, that way they can cook better. So one way to do this is just with a good old pair of kitchen shears. And this is good, especially if you're not as comfortable with the knife yet. And also it's kind of easy and fun to just cut individual florets off. So that's one way you can do it. Another way is you just take the knife and you cut at the base here. Get this last straggler. And so you see, this is the main thing you're trying to get off. And you can see these guys are still kind of held together. So what you can do is you can either just pull them apart like this, or you can take your knife and just cut off a little bit more. And eventually you'll get most of the florets all separate like that. And if you have a big guy like this, you can cut him in half. And if you want them to get nice and crispy when you're roasting them, I recommend cutting them somewhat smaller. But then also they can sit flat on the pan that way. Okay, now that you got these little trees all cut up, let's get them seasoned before we throw them in the oven. And fair warning, some people think that broccoli has a little bit of a smell to it. So if you are with people who may find that offensive, then just get ready with some extra candles or something, or just have the rest of your meal smell that much better to block it out a little bit. I personally don't mind it. All right, so first we're gonna start with the good old requisite olive oil. Give that a drizzle. And then we've got here just some garlic powder. Shake that good stuff on there. And then, of course, salt and pepper. And you could use a spatula to toss these, but in my opinion, the best way to toss anything is with your hands, because it gets it a much better even coating, I think, and it's just a little more fun. So make sure you get that olive oil all over with all those spices. Flipping them over as you're doing it. And overboard. And then spread them out into an even layer. And again, when you're roasting most things, you want to make sure they're pretty well spaced out. You don't want them to be crowded, or they won't cook up as well and they won't brown quite as nicely as you want. And then we're going to take these into the oven. Okay, let's talk about the protein. So now we've got us some chicken, and what we have here are some bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. And we're going to be making some delicious, crispy lemon chicken thighs. And the skin, when you're roasting them in the oven, is great because it gets nice and crisp and delicious. If you're going to be cooking chicken some other ways, low and slow, something like that, then you probably don't want the skin on there because when it's not crisp, it's not delish, if you know what I'm saying.
And to help develop that nice crisp skin, We are going to first sear the chicken, and then we're going to finish it off in the oven.
So first thing I'm gonna do is turn on the heat, get this pan, whoop, that's not the right one. Here we go. I'm gonna get this guy heating up on medium high. And I'll go ahead and get some oil in there just to coat the bottom of the pan. Okie dokie. And then while that bad boy is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and minimize dishes, and I'm gonna season the chicken right in the container. You may not get as good a coverage here because some of the chicken's covered up, but you know what? Sometimes it's worth it for the dishes. And this is just gonna be very simple salt and pepper seasoning. When you're cooking chicken, generally you want to cook skin side down first, and then you flip it and finish on the other side. So what we're gonna do here today is we're gonna start it on the cast iron, and then we're gonna toss it in the oven to finish. Get your hand just a tiny bit wet, and then you flick a little bit of water in there. And if you don't hear a sizzle, you know it's still heating up. And in this case, it didn't get that sizzle, so we're waiting a little longer. And when you do that little trick, don't do too much water because it could cause a big mess and splash and burn yourself.
Whew! I hope that got your attention because there's a decent chance that you will encounter at least one oil fire in your life. So make sure to watch the next video to learn how to deal with oil fires. And spoiler alert, never put out oil fires with water. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Okay, now that it's been heating up a couple minutes, you can also put your hand above it and see kind of how warm it's feeling. Let's give it one more test. There you go, hear a little bit of that sizzle. So now we will grab the chicken thighs and we will place them skin side down in the cast iron. Whoop, chicken thigh down. Yeah. When you get it on there nice and hot and hear that sizzle, that's how you know you're good. And look, we can actually give these guys that were hiding a little bit salt and pepper where they're blank. Now, if you have a splatter guard, this is a great time to use it because this oil is hot and will splatter some. And if you like to cook naked, this probably isn't the best dish for you. Now, if you heard me talk about crowding pans, this is right on that edge of maybe a little crowded, but we're gonna make it work. Just kind of move the chicken around and play your Tetris and get it all to fit. In an ideal world, you don't have it this crowded, but sometimes you just want to cook it all at once. All right, now we got all of our chicken in here. We're gonna go ahead and season the non-skin side. Now, some of you may be asking, why are you using chicken thighs instead of the good old chicken breast? And although that's kind of personal preference, we found that ourselves and a lot of people enjoy the richer flavor of the dark meat. And also the thighs do a really good job of staying moist. Breasts are really easy to get dry. These thighs do a much better job in our opinion. and the flavor is just delicious. So we're gonna let this guy cook skin side down for about 8 minutes, and then we'll come back and check it. All right, so now we're gonna show you how to make a salad dressing. Now, salad dressing you can obviously buy in the plastic container at the store, and that's fine if you're in a pinch, but it's really easy to make a dressing at home. One of the most common ways to make one is just very simple, oil and vinegar. And then you add some salt and pepper to give it a little bit of taste. And based on the different oil you use, or mostly based on the different vinegar you use, you'll get a different flavor. And then also we like to add a little bit of honey for sweetness. And in this case, we're gonna add some lemon to give a little extra flavor as well. So we're not gonna measure anything, but there are some rough guidelines. So a 3-to-1 ratio of oil to acid is a good ratio. Some people do 2-to-1 as well. So we'll be shooting for somewhere in between 2 and 3-to-1. So let's go ahead and start with our acids, which is gonna be our lemon and our vinegar today. Okay, and for this one, we really like the flavor of the balsamic in this, so I'm gonna add a decent glug of that. And you're always gotta be tasting and adding and subtracting as you see fit. Make sure you get that right taste. So here's kind of what it looks like with all of our acids in there. So we're gonna add 2 to 3 times that in oil. That looks good enough to me. Then we'll add our salt, pepper. Remember, you can always add more. It's a little harder to take away. And we'll just give it a nice little glug of honey just to sweeten it up a little bit. And then give it a whisk. So the oil and vinegar naturally will separate, but when you whisk it, or if you put it in a shaker and shake it, what you're doing is something called emulsifying. And I think it's basically suspending the oil and the vinegar, but don't hold me to that scientific term right now. I don't know off the top of my head. Basically, you want to get emulsification so that way it's nice and smooth and not separated. And if you let this sit for a while, it will actually separate. So you can always just give it another whisk if you need to. So let's give it the good old pinky test. So I'm getting a lot of the vinegar there. So it's a little tart. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more of this honey. Sweeten it up a little more. And just a little bit more oil. And I didn't really get much salt in there, so let's go ahead and add a little bit of that. And why not pepper too? I think that's pretty good. So that's how you make a salad dressing. Easy as that. And you can just throw this in your fridge and save it, whisk it or shake it up right before you use it, and you're good to go. All right, so it's been about 8 minutes now, maybe a tad over. So we're gonna flip these bad boys. Oh yeah, look at that skin crisping up nicely. Go ahead and turn the heat off on this guy. And be careful because it can splatter. I like to keep my distance when flipping. Then, for baking, we're gonna lay these lemon slices right on top. And you can use your tongs for this too. Keep your hands far away from that oil. Not only does it add a little extra flavor, but it's great for the presentation. Okay, so these bad boys are ready to go into the oven. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off the heat and take it over to the oven. All right, throw that chicken in on top and throw that broccoli in on bottom. We're gonna set the timer for about 15 minutes. We'll wanna check the broccoli then and probably give it a nice little toss. So see you in a little bit. All right, now that you've got your dressing made, just give it one last little whisk before you get ready to throw it on the salad. And for this salad, we've got strawberries, mixed greens, feta, and walnuts. And so we're just gonna give all those a nice dump. Dump. Sounds good with food, doesn't it? And with the walnuts, you may want to chop them up before, but we like them big. We like them chunky. And you probably won't use all of the dressing. So go ahead and just pour some in and then toss it with some tongs. Tasty. Thank you. And we like to call this our 5-finger salad. Whoops. You got your greens, your fruit, your nut, your vinaigrette, and cheese. And you can change up any one of those ingredients and end up with a really delicious salad. All right, it's been a little longer than that, but take out the broccoli and just give it a nice little toss. Flip it over, get all that delicious browning goodness. Throw some on the oven. Spread it back out again. And toss it back in. Carefully grab that broccoli. Give it another 8 minutes or so. Voila. Okay, it's been another few minutes. Let's take these bad boys out. Pro tip, don't put your face near the oven when it's hot. Give you a nice little facial that you probably don't want. Oh yeah. All right, then just get this bad boy plated. Scoop on some broccoli. Get one of these chicken thighs. And now it's ready for the salad. So let's get that salad. And there you have it, a beautiful meal.